Yeah, click on that box.
Good.
Okay.
All right, it's recording.
Recording. We're good to go. We're live now, folks. We're sorry for the delay, but we're ready to go.
All right, and as I was saying, if you're here for the training for volunteers for the Ballots for Patients program, you're in the right place. My name is Paul O'Hanlon. I've been doing this for, gosh, maybe 8 years, and we're expecting this year to be bigger and better, more hospitals, and so I'm really happy that you're willing to volunteer. I'm going to be opening this up for questions at 2 different places during the webinar. As you'll kind of see, the lay of the day ends up where there's one task in the morning and there's a different task in the evening or the afternoon, and so I will be kind of walking people through what those various tasks are. And when I change, sorry, I just realized I need another document which I just opened. When I change from morning to afternoon, I'll give people a chance to ask questions about the morning job. What I want to start with is giving people just some basic information, one of which a very important piece is that this is a completely non-partisan project activity, and it's very important to us, it's very important to the hospitals that we do this strictly as a non-partisan activity. So that means that you should not wear any partisan paraphernalia. Please don't have partisan buttons or, shirt signs or things that indicate a partisan nature. I personally think it's really important that all the patients have trust in us that, we're not there for some ulterior motive to do anything other than help them vote. And so that's just very important. The other thing, talking about helping patients vote, we may be, as far as I can tell, the only community that does this. So in that sense, I'm proud that my community makes sure that people in the hospitals have the chance to vote. And I think it's great that you all are willing to help. So I want to start off with what happens when volunteers show up in the morning. So in the morning, what happens first off is that each of you will be assigned to a hospital and given a place to go to when you get to the hospital, and a person who will be your contact person at the hospital. And you'll find that there are individual large brown envelopes with a series of documents inside. And the morning job is to go to all the different patients who have indicated that they would like to vote. And we have a mechanism where patients are going to be alerted to this program. They're going to be given a phone number to call to get on the list for the next day. We're going to hand it out at dinner time on their dinner trays, and they call, get on a list. And so when you show up on Tuesday morning, there will be a list of patients who you will then go to. And you'll take one or more of these big brown envelopes, and each one then contains all the documents that that patient needs to complete to be able to go do this process. And so the first thing that you do when you walk into the patient's room, is introduce yourself, tell them that you're there to help them vote that day, that you're with the Ballots for Patients program, and that you have the forms that will need to be filled out to allow them to vote by an emergency absentee ballot. And the first thing that you should do is on the outside of the envelope, write the patient's name and room number. And that's because throughout the day, lots of different people will be taking those documents out, processing them for various reasons, putting them back in the envelope, and at the end of the day, in the afternoon then, when everything comes back from downtown, it will be in the proper envelope, and the afternoon team will get these envelopes, and on the outside will be the patient's name and room number, and they'll know how to make sure that the right ballot gets to the right patient. So, and I'll kind of explain all of that when I talk about the afternoon. But anyway, so the envelope system is a easy and effective way for us to keep all of these documents organized and make sure that the right patients, that we're getting the right documents to the right patients.
So Paul, does that mean that each patient is going to have a separate brown envelope?
Correct.
Good.
Right.
Thank you.
So each patient will end up having their own brown envelope with their own documents. And as I'll walk you through the day, you'll see how many different people kind of interact with those forms. So the first thing I want to take you to is this form here, which is the emergency application. And will people see my cursor?
I think so. If you want to go to the bottom tray, the little webinar thing,
Mm-hmm.
You can unmute people for a sec if you go to where it says, do you see attendees? Do you see a place for you to pick the attendees? No.
Attendees.
Attendees.
Yes.
Okay. So unmute somebody and ask them.
Okay. Wonder who has that.
Well, somebody's got their hand up right there. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Anne has a question. And Anne.
Oh, Mary.
I'm not able to actually see your screen.
Oh, share your screen, Paul.
Oh, where is that?
You want to write that big arrow right there. You do sharing my screen. No, don't stop the recording. That big circle with the arrow in it. No, that changes. There you go.
I already did.
Okay.
Show.
Looking. Huh. Paul, go. I'm sorry for these technical problems, folks. Can you go?
Oh, please. It happens all the time. Don't worry.
Can you go over to Paul, change presenter, and just make sure that you're listed as the presenter?
Okay.
There you go. Okay, now you can
show my
now you're showing your screen.
Okay, can people?
Sorry.
We got it. We got it now.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, should I mute these folks or let them? I don't. Okay, I'm going to leave you to be open. So your mics are open, just to let you know. Okay, great.
That's just for Anne and
Marin.
yes.
Okay.
You want to open everybody else's?
How do people raise their hand?
They have something on their control panel, Paul, where they can raise their hand.
Okay.
And if you have that list open, you'll see their little hand up in the air, and you'll be able to.
Okay, good. So anybody who wants to say something or has a mic can raise their hand, and I'll unmute them.
Okay, good to go.
And can you see my cursor, like where I have it right now on the form?
Very barely. It's very small.
Okay.
There is a pointer that you can use, Paul.
Uh-huh.
If you go to your control panel, I think, right, the where you see the orange arrow, that little skinny.
Here.
Yeah, down at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
All the way down, slide down. Is that one a pointer?
Drawing tool.
What does that say?
Okay, pen highlighter. How about this?
Okay.
Right.
So you can just circle things or whatever you want to do. Okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, and then how do I get this?
You're going to have to unhighlight to be able to.
Okay.
You're such a good audience to put up with us as we're doing this. Okay. Okay, and then go back and choose the highlighter again. If you
yeah, but then I do it. It shows my picture for some reason. Like,
oh, every time you do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, there you go.
Let me do it this way. Okay. There we go.
Now you have to choose the highlighter.
All right. Sorry about that, folks. Okay.
You could stop showing your
just exit out.
okay.
Okay. Okay. I think we're all right.
We're getting there.
Okay. So okay. So you can see this form, and you can see me highlighting this, right? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Okay. So so this is the form. This is the main form that you're going to fill out in the morning, and it's got most of the information that's needed. And we start with printing the full name. And it's important to give, this is really, the whole purpose of this section is to give the elections office as much information as we can to make sure they can match these forms with the right voter. Because there are, a lot of John Smiths, and they have to make sure that they have the right John Smith, because they have to make sure that that person is registered to vote and qualified to vote, and and all those things. So more information is good, less information is bad. So we want to print their first, middle, and last name. We want to write in Allegheny County, because we will only be, generally speaking, there's one hospital that's serving another county, but it's really hard for us to serve other counties because it involves travel to that county's election office. Generally speaking, you're going to be writing in Allegheny County, and my home address is, and you would write the home address. Now, do not use a post office box, because people don't live in their post office box, and the post office box doesn't tell the elections office exactly which ward and district they live in, because depending on which ward and district they live in, they're going to get a slightly different ballot, because they're eligible to vote for some races based on, their geography. Like their state senator is going to vary depending on where exactly their home is. So we want to use their actual living address, and the full street number, street name, whatever municipality, and their zip code. The next section where it says in the blank ward in the blank district, we leave that blank. We don't fill that in. Most people don't know their ward and district. The elections office tells us they don't trust anybody who thinks they know, and they look it up anyway, and they said don't even bother. And so we don't. And so what you do fill in is their city, town, or borough. And what I mean by that is things like Pittsburgh, if they live in Pittsburgh, Green Tree or Mount Lebanon or Upper St. Clair, that kind of thing is where you would put in that blank. And I have resided in this voting district since. So I usually ask people, well, when did you move there? How long have you lived there? And they kind of remember the year they moved there. And then I write that down. It appears that when we register to vote, we give we write down what our occupation is. It's been so long I don't remember this, but apparently we do. So it can be helpful for them in the elections office to know what their occupation is. Sometimes that's how they're able to match the voter. And if the person says that they're retired, I would ask them, well, what did you do before you retired? And they said, well, I was a teacher. I would write teacher/retired. My date of birth is, that's a simple one, whatever their date of birth is. And in the unlikely event that you have an employee of the Commonwealth or the federal government, you'll see that they're qualified to vote without a street address. They have a different system, I guess, to protect people who are state or federal employees. And you would check that box. I've never had anybody that qualifies, but you never know. And then you'll see that it asks for either the person's PA driver's license or PennDOT ID number if they have one and if they know it. The thing about being in the hospital is a lot of people don't keep their wallets and purses and things because it's not, it's a very public area. So oftentimes people don't have that. All that we really need is their last 4 digits of their Social Security number. And I haven't met anybody yet in doing this that didn't know what their last 4 digits of their Social Security number is. I think that if all else fails, we could probably ask the hospital personnel, and they probably have that on record, but most everybody knows what their last 4 digits are. And in the unlikely event that you have a voter who doesn't have a PA license or a Social Security number, then we would check that box down here, and it says a copy of an acceptable ID must provided with this application. So in that rare case, we would ask the voter if they have any form of ID, and if they do, we would get a photocopy of that and include it with these forms. So that's the top section of that document. The next area that you would need to worry about is in the middle. I guess, is there a way for me to take these things stay on the screen?
Is there a way to erase?
Yeah. Tricky. We're novices at this, it shows. Well,
if you go back, Paul, to where the highlighting tool was,
I
bet there's an eraser.
Oh.
Is there?
Erase all drawings. Yes. Okay, great. All right. Thank you. All right. Now, the next section that we complete is in the middle of this form, and you'll see that what we're not completing is the section above that deals with voters who are voting by absentee ballot because of occupation business reasons. Obviously, that's not why our people will be voting absentee. They're going to be voting absentee because in our case, an unexpected illness or disability or something like that caused a unplanned hospitalization. And so this is the section right there that we will be completing. And so this section starts with this text. I expect to be unable to attend my proper polling place on the day of the election because of illness or physical disability, the nature of which appears below. So on this line, what we've learned to write is the simple statement, I'm in the hospital. Before we learn better, we discovered that patients will write the most private information you can imagine there, and nobody really wants them to do that. And I was embarrassed that people were putting things, because this is a public document, and so all that we really encourage them to say now is, I'm in the hospital. And when we get down before the judge, and the judge wants to know, well, what's the excuse of this person for not being able to vote? And we say, Your Honor, this person's in the hospital. The judge never really has another question about, well, why? So all that we encourage people to say there is, I'm in the hospital. And then we have them date it and sign it, and that's basically you're good to go with that form. That's the top section and that section are the only sections that we need to fill out on this particular page. Now, I do want you to look at the bottom section, though, because it's very rare, but occasionally you have a voter in the hospital that can't sign. You know, you might have somebody that just had surgery on a hand, their writing hand, and it's just not possible, or they've got all kinds of tubes and things going into that hand, and they can't grab a pen. So occasionally, you'll be dealing with this last section, which is the following is to be completed if the applicant is unable to sign because of illness or physical disability. I hereby state that I'm unable to sign my application for an absentee ballot without assistance because I'm unable to write for a reason of my illness, blah, blah, blah. I have made or have received assistance in making my mark in lieu of my signature. So a mark can be literally anything, a X, a squiggle, a line, pretty much anything. And if that means that you have to assist the person with making that mark, then you do. And then you date it here, and then because their signature, the way that the elections people kind of verify the voter's ID is by comparing the signatures. So obviously this voter who is unable to sign, that signature on their voter card is going to look different than this mark. And so we have to fill in the section of witnessing them making their mark. So you as the person assisting them would have to write your signature there and your complete address, because in the unlikely event that somebody raises a challenge to this voter and essentially challenges that it was really them and that they really made that mark, that you could theoretically be called as a witness. It's never happened, but it could happen, and that's why this is here. So you would have to sign as a witness, completely your address, and if they ever need to get in touch with you about it, they know where to find you. So that's the first page that's in that big brown envelope, the packet of materials. The next form that you fill out is this one, and so this is where the voter who's in the hospital and unable to get out and around to do these things on their own has to designate what's known as an authorized representative. And the elections office will not give anybody somebody else's absentee ballot without this form, because this basically authorizes the elections office to deal with somebody who's not, in fact, a registered voter, the registered voter for the absentee ballot. So we need to fill this one out. And you would just start out by inserting the name of the county. And I hereby designate blank person to serve as my agent for obtaining an emergency absentee ballot. And you would again write the name of the county there. So basically we got a name of the county there, got a name of the county there, and this we actually leave blank, and I'll kind of explain why. But the person who will be the authorized representative will not be at the hospital, but will be downtown to process all the documents. And so when that person gets these forms, their first job is to fill in their name. And who we have doing that job are a number of volunteer lawyers. So one person per hospital will be doing it. And I may or may not know who that person is the morning of election day. But if we do, then we may ask people to fill that in. But at the moment, my instructions to you is to leave it blank. And then, so far then all that we're doing is inserting the name of the county at the top, and then in the middle of that text, the name of the county, and then the address of the voter, and then the voter again has to sign. And again, if the voter cannot sign, what I would do is have them make their mark, and then I would write underneath that your signature, put in as witness, and then your address, just like you did in the other sheet. And then the last form is the certification. This is where the authorized representative agrees to serve. as that authorized representative. And so on this one then, you would write in the name of the voter, right here, name of the voter. And so it says, I hereby agree to serve as the authorized representative for the name of the voter for purposes of obtaining an emergency absentee ballot for the above voter only, and to return the ballot after it has been completed by the voter and sealed in the required envelope to the Board of Elections. And then some blah, blah, blah stuff after that. So all we need to worry about here is the name of the voter. In terms of your job, there's nothing else for you to do. If this gets downtown, that authorized representative will know that their job is to sign this and to print their name below that. So here they would be printing their name and writing their address. But you don't need to do that because you won't know that, either of that information. I don't expect that you will know that on the morning of election day. So, and then the last thing I guess I want to show you that's in that packet of materials is something that's actually a three-page document. And what this is, it says on the front, if you live in Allegheny County, we can help you vote today. And this is a document that just explains the procedure to the patient. You know, and what we do is we leave this behind then. So, you know, when you go there with the big brown envelope, all the forms that you fill out, you put back in that big brown envelope. But this document you leave behind with the patient for them to be able to refer back to. And what it does is it explains the process, you know, what steps we have to take. You know, we will provide you with the application form. It says in step 1, we explain that, you know, all that they really need to say is that I'm in the hospital. The whole, you know, so we say a lot of things in this form that you will be saying to them verbally. But again, after you leave and they kind of have questions or wonder, what was that again? This kind of is a way of reminding them and also kind of giving them a sense of what will follow. So step 2 is then we have to get a doctor to sign the form and have it notarized. After that, step 3, you'll see we take your application to the Allegheny County Department of Elections and file the application. So each hospital will have a driver that you're going to trigger at some point to come and pick up the documents. Each hospital will have a volunteer kind of person coordinator, and that person will have the phone number for their driver. So when they're ready in the morning, they think that you've reached the bottom of your list of patients who want to vote, they'll call that driver. The driver will come, take your application in step 3 to the Department of Elections and essentially hand those documents over then to the volunteer lawyer for that hospital, who will take the applications and file them and go before a judge and do all that stuff. Now, what we say in step 4 is that your blank paper ballot will be delivered to your room. We believe this will happen before 6 p.m. My hope is that it happens like around 2:30 p.m. But there's a certain level of chaos that's out of our control. And what the chaos is that when we go before the judge, and there's a variety of parties, including the political parties like the Democrats and the Republicans, that have an opportunity to challenge these votes. And what we find happens in the presidential election years is that the parties fly in these out-of-town lawyers, some of whom see their job as being to object to everything and gum things up. So in 2012, it ended up taking us hours to get out of court, and we were probably closer to the 6 p.m. time than the 2:30 p.m. But at the moment, there's no way for us to be able to guess ahead what's going to happen on Tuesday. But step 4, you'll see, is that the blank paper ballots get back to them. They basically fill in their ballot. There's a series of envelopes they have to get them into that I'll walk you through in a bit. And then we drive them back downtown, and the authorized representative will again meet the driver and take those ballots into the Department of Elections and file them before the deadline at 8 p.m. So this, and then there's a couple of phone numbers for the patients to call if they have any questions during the day. And the one question that comes up occasionally, and you might just want to mention it to the patient, it's not unusual for us to go there in the morning, have a patient on our list who wants to vote. We process their application. We take it downtown. We go before the judge. We do all those things. We come back to the hospital with their ballot and discover that they're all just have been discharged. And they didn't expect to be discharged. We didn't expect, and suddenly they're discharged. That person should feel free to go vote at their precinct. So they can go and vote even though they've taken all these steps. And that's really what they should do. Occasionally, I've had patients who have been discharged and just decide to wait for us to come back, and that will work too. But mostly they go when they can't. So, you might want to mention to them that in the unlikely event they get discharged before we get back to them, they can go and vote on their way home in their regular precinct. So I'm going to unmute everybody and ask if anybody has, oops,
You may need to unmute them one at a time.
Okay, let me unmute everybody. So does anybody have any questions about any of these forms?
Somebody raised their hand, Paul?
Okay, Deborah Cherry.
Yes, you didn't describe how the physician author signatures and notaries process happens.
Okay. I'm going to mute you just because we're getting some feedback. Basically, what will happen is that so in the morning time when you've got this list of patient and room numbers who want to vote, when you've reached the end of that list, the next step is to take all of those applications to a doctor. Each hospital is designating a specific doctor that we would go to. That doctor will be ready for us. And we also have a notary, because it's the doctor's signature that has to be notarized. And so at the point in the near the end of the morning when all these applications are complete, we'll be taking all of them to our doctor, who will then sign all of them at once, and they'll all get notarized. So probably, around the time that you take this to the doctor is when I would probably call the driver and let them know that, you'll be ready in about 10 or 15 minutes. That's how that works. Any,
Do you want to unmute that person and see if it answered their question?
Yeah. So, here you go. Deborah, did that answer your question? And then,
Yes.
Okay, good. Anybody else have questions?
Somebody else has their
Looks
hand
like
up.
Maren. Do you have a question? I'm gonna mute. Does Maren Maren, your hand is up. Would you like to ask a question, or am I misinterpreting that? Okay.
I was still muted for a while. We will go, well, two questions. One is, we will be informed where in particular we will go. I don't know the hospital complex that well.
Yeah.
That's one question.
Right.
So we'll get an email, or?
Yeah, I will be in touch with each one of you probably Sunday. I know Monday at the latest, obviously, but probably Sunday with assignments. And some of you, I believe that, Maren, you had indicated an interest in Presby.
Yeah, because I'll be at doing election protection at the Soldiers and Sailors starting at noon.
Right, right. So there's an office that I think is actually in the Kaufman building, where you will be basically reporting to, and they have people there who are prepared to essentially escort you then to wherever you need to go, because it's a pretty far-flung complex there.
It's big. That's why I figure I'll be following a lot of signs. The other thing is on the certification of the authorized representative, it says specifically that I am not acting as a rep. This is the person downtown, I presume, and we're just filling in the county or something. The person attests that they are not serving as the authorized representative for anybody else.
Right, right.
Does not live in the same household, but they're serving as the authorized representative for a whole hospital's worth of people. So that form seems like I don't get that form.
Well, the form really worried us the first year, and I researched why the form said that. And it's based on a court case, and the court case has a footnote where the judge says, I'm not deciding this in a situation like a hospital or a nursing home. And the judge who hears a case like that will have to decide, you know, whether such a restriction applies there. So we've got election protection lawyers who have been briefed on that issue and are prepared to argue to the judge why that particular clause in the form wouldn't apply here. So, you know, we're aware of that and we're ready to deal with it.
Okay.
But yeah, it worried us.
But all we're doing there is filling in the county.
Yeah.
Okay, there's another person who has their hand raised, Paul.
Maren?
No, I'm,
You're good?
I guess I can put it down. Whoops, no, there. Now it's down.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody? I'm going to unmute Victoria, but we were getting a lot of noise.
Hi, Paul.
Any questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, I'm going to mute you again because you're noisy for some reason.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from anybody else? Because I want to then basically go to the afternoon. Are you good? All right. I'm gonna mute you just for the time being. And if anybody has any questions, maybe you can raise your hand. So in the afternoon, if you're going to be working the afternoon shift, I think that number one is that we'll probably have a mechanism where you will be triggered by your team leader to know more or less exactly when to get there. What we're asking people is to be prepared to get there at 2:30. And, you know, and if there's any, you know, some people have to make their transportation plans ahead and, you know, they're just stuck coming at 2:30. And if that's the case, just get there at 2:30. But if we know that we're delayed in court and we know that, you know, it'll be at least another hour, we'll try to give you a heads up. But again, there's only so much we can do in that situation because there's a certain amount of chaos that's simply out of our control. in the afternoon, then you'll be coming to find that there's the driver delivers this stack of big brown envelopes. On the outside is the patient's name and number, and on the inside will be their absentee ballot. And your job then is to go to the room number, make sure you have the right patient, tell them you have their ballot, pull it out of the big brown envelope, give them an opportunity to vote. Most of them will be capable of just, marking the ballot on their own. A few of them, that we kind of talked about where they're limited in their use of their hands, might need assistance. The law basically says that a voter with a disability requiring assistance is entitled to get that assistance from the person of their choice. It can be anybody as long as it's not their employer, their union representative, or the judge of elections. And since you're none of those things, you can assist the voter. And if they want to have their family member assist them, they can do that. Anything's legit as long as that person's not a employer, union rep, or judge of elections. And after they complete their ballot, and sometimes what I do is I hand them their ballot and say, do you need any help? They say no. I say, okay, I'm going to go up, hand the next ballot out to the next patient, and I'll be back in a few minutes. And I give them some time to vote, and then I go back and make sure that they're done. And then there's a process of putting that ballot into envelopes. And I want to go through that with you. And this is not kind of a perfect way of doing it, but it's what I have. So in last election, I made a scan of what you get back with the ballot. And the first thing is that there's an instruction sheet, with, a lot of general kind of information like, how you fill in ovals and stuff that we've been doing all our lives. Do not make X's or check marks. They really want you to fill in the oval. And then it basically walks you through the process of getting them in the proper envelopes. But rather than have you try to remember it, I want you to understand it, because it's easier once you understand it to kind of recall. So the first thing to know is that the ballot itself has no identifying information, because this is a secret ballot. And if they write the voter's name on it, it ain't secret no more. So there's no identifying information on the ballot itself. And if the voter writes any identifying information, that ballot will be disqualified. So they should not do that. Also, because it's a secret ballot, there needs to be some way of protecting that voter's secrecy. So when they complete the ballot, the first thing they do is they put it in the official absentee ballot envelope, which again, as you will see, has no place for you to write any information like name or anything like that. It's what's known as the secrecy envelope. And so the first thing happens is the ballot goes in the secrecy envelope and it's sealed. And what I mean by sealed is it's, the regular envelope where you, lick the adhesive and seal it. And after that, it's placed in the official absentee ballot envelope that is also provided. Now, this was a primary, and so you'll see that it marks it's a Democratic ballot, because in the primary, you either get a Democratic or Republican ballot, and this is what the prothonotary uses to make it easy on them to know which is which and which, kind of pile to put it in. You won't have this information in the general election in November. But, and let me just sort of rotate this. All right, so, and what you'll see is that this is where the voter must write identifying information, because when the ballot gets downtown, it's placed in a big box that they then go through at the end of the night one by one and see if either party or any parties that have the capacity to object to this ballot, whether they object. And so they will go through one by one, and they start by saying, this is an absentee ballot of, whatever the voter's name is, John Smith.
And who's going to have filled that in, Paul? Will that come filled when they get the packet back? Will the voter's name be on there?
No. So after you get the ballot into the privacy envelope and seal it, next is you put it in this envelope that has the voter's identifying information. And that's where the voter would have to sign there where it says sign here. So this area here, the voter would need to sign. Then they'd have to print their name here, and then they'd have to date it. And then you'll see underneath you have the text about if a voter is unable to sign because of illness or disability, then you would have to sign as the witness, complete your address. This is where I guess they make their mark, and then the date. So this is something that is the last part that the voter has to complete. And so what you will end with is this particular envelope will be then stuffed with the ballot that's inside its privacy envelope, and then all of that will be sealed up into this envelope. And so at the end of the night, when they start the objection process, and if they find that there are no objections to this voter, they open up this envelope, pulling out the privacy envelope that's still sealed with the ballot, and they put both of that in a still sealed in another box that at the end of the night then gradually is filled with similar ballots in their privacy envelopes, and you can no longer kind of match the voter with the particular ballot, and that's how they then kind of ensure secrecy, because then when they open up that last box of documents, they excuse me. Sorry, all right. Oh, it's because I was in mode. Sorry about that. So let me do this. Let me ask if there's any questions on these envelopes. I think that the one thing I would say is sort of a cautionary thing is if we do these envelopes wrong, it also disqualifies their ballot. So it's really important that we get the envelopes right.
So Paul, just to review what you said then, where it says sign and date here,
yes,
that's the voter who's signing there.
Right.
Not the person who's assisting.
Correct.
And the only reason you'd fill out the very bottom is if they weren't able to sign and they were going to make a mark.
Right, right.
Okay.
And the text that they're signing to is, I hereby declare that I am qualified to vote in this election from the address stated on my absentee ballot application, that I have not already voted, that I expect to be unable to appear at my polling place, and I further declare that I marked my absentee ballot in secret. And that's where they then sign, print their name, and date it. And in the unlikely event they cannot sign, then you would complete the part about the witness signature.
And you would print their name and date for them?
Yes? Yeah, I mean, my sort of strategy is to offer to fill out as much of this as I can for the voter, whether they can write or not, because what I know is I'm more familiar with these forms now than they are, and I can speed things up, and then I just hand over to them the documents when they need to sign it. And 90% of the people prefer it that way anyway. And if somebody wants to do it themselves, then I let them do it themselves.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Any other questions? The afternoon tends to be an easier part of the task in the sense that there's less for us to do. It doesn't take as long. When the voter is, voting their ballot, you don't really need to stick around. In most cases, they don't need help. You can kind of multitask at that point. It tends to go faster. It's also, in some ways, the most fun part because, people will mostly be treating you as a surprising hero in their life. Most people don't even realize that they should expect to be able to vote on election day and will treat this as a welcome surprise. So the afternoon does tend to be a little bit more fun.
Hey, Paul,
Yes.
just to make sure that I understand. So if the person is going to have to make a mark, the person who has brought them their ballot,
Right.
The person isn't able to sign on the top line,
Right.
but the person who's assisting them could print their name there.
Correct.
And print the date.
Yeah.
And then they would fill in the address of the witness, the signature of the witness, and the date, and the person would make their mark next to where it says mark.
Yeah, for some reason when they did this form, they put the mark space there, which seems a little counterintuitive to me, but I didn't make this form.
Okay.
I would have probably, put it more like over here.
But it's okay. But it's okay for the volunteer then to put their name and put the date in.
Right.
To fill in everything, so there would be no signature by the voter, and just the voter would make a mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, right. If I understand correctly what you're asking, if I had a voter that was going to have to make their mark here,
right,
I would start by printing their name here and then their date,
right,
and then let them make their mark, and then I would.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to identify the ballot with the voter if you didn't write their name on it.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and then I would write my address, my signature, and then the date again here.
Okay.
Yeah, there is no actual blank for mark. It just runs into the witness address.
Yeah.
So their mark is somewhere around the word mark.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and what can you say? Different people make different forms, and I wouldn't do it that way, but that's the way it is. Any other questions on the envelopes? So sometimes what happens is we get 3 envelopes. So you'll actually see that on the left of the screen in the blue is the instructions. Beneath that is a 3rd envelope, and it can get confusing, like what envelope's what. And I think that the elections office is not going to give us 3 envelopes because I pleaded with them that the 3rd envelope was confusing. So, but they might still be giving us the 3rd envelope. But what you need to know is that, you have the ballot, it's now complete, and it wants, you want to put it in the secrecy envelope. You want to put it in this thing that has no identifying information, and then that's sealed. And the next thing you want to do is to put it in an envelope that does have identifying information so that they can at least identify the voter and whether or not the voter has any objections raised before they, go to reach the process of actually counting the vote. So any questions there?
Paul?
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me. Okay. So if we have like either a preferred time or only one time that we can do it,
Yes.
how do we let you know that for your scheduling purposes?
Probably, many of you have actually told me already. It wouldn't hurt at all if people would shoot me an email, or is there a way for people to respond to this GoToMeeting thing that I would get?
We could set up a poll, and we could poll. It would be like it would be like a follow-up, some follow-up questions.
Uh-huh.
And the follow-up questions would get launched to the people who attended the webinar.
Okay.
And then you could make one of the questions, you know, what time are you available? And then, you know, any questions that you wanted.
Okay.
I think we can set that up right after this ends.
Okay. Okay.
And the other thing that I wanted to tell people was I didn't get these attachments uploaded
Okay.
to the webinar.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking we have everybody's email addresses who's participating, so we can email everybody these attachments if you'd like
Okay.
everybody to have a copy.
Yeah, that wouldn't hurt. Yeah, so we'll email you the forms so that, you know, you could know them and love them. And then you'll have a way of getting back to me to let me know what your, you know, preferred availability time is. And any anything like that that would be good for me to know, like if you have either a preference or a limitation as to which hospital that you could be in. Since we still have another training tomorrow, we're still trying to juggle everything from how many volunteers to where they want to be, to even how many hospitals are kind of going to be doing this. So as of today, there was still one hospital that was weighing the you know, so there's so many things that we're still juggling that I won't really know till Sunday. Deborah, did you have a question?
I just want to let you know I'm not sure the polls will give you the details on who is answering them. So you may get that 10 people said they could do Shady Side, not who those people are.
Uh-huh.
You might be better off just with asking, you know, sending your email address and adding your questions, or doing a Google, or sending a Google survey or something out.
Okay.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, maybe we could do a Survey Monkey,
Uh-huh.
a real quick Survey Monkey that would just ask you. We can leave open-ended questions. You could do that.
Okay, good point. Anne, did you have something?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could list the hospitals that you have so far.
Yeah. So far what we have are Mercy Hospital, McGee, Presby, Shady Side, Passivant, St. Margaret's, and Monroeville East. And the hospital that is still a little bit in question is McKeesport. There's a very slight possibility but still a possibility that some of the Allegheny Health Network hospitals like Allegheny General, West Penn, and Forbes, whatever the Forbes one is in Wilkinsburg, that they might also come on board, but that's looking a little bit less likely. The ones that you may be assigned to do not include Passivant, St. Margaret's, or Monroeville. So the ones that you may be assigned to at the moment are limited to Mercy, McGee, Presby, Shady Side, and there's still this wild card of McKeesport. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, I really thank all of you, and we will get something to you. Let me give people my cell phone number. If anybody needs to reach me, it's area code 412-480-3160. So again, that's 412-480-3160. And when we get back to you by email, we'll have my email address for you as well.
Paul, could you include your cell phone in the emails to us, if possible? Because I don't have any way of writing that down.
Got it. Yeah. I could do that. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. If not, I thank all of you for joining the webinar, for being willing to volunteer on election day, and I look forward to getting back to you and giving you, more information in terms of which hospital and so forth. And I hope you have a really enjoyable time on Tuesday. Just the other thing I should say is that in 2012, because presidential election years are always special and more people are interested and more people want to vote, 2012, we did a total of about 300 ballots from all the hospitals. And I'm predicting that we will do more this year. So in the end, there's a lot of people that we end up making a big difference for, and 300 votes is a lot. So it's an impactful thing that we're doing, and for that reason too, I thank you. All right, any other questions?
So Paul, we're going to send them a Survey Monkey so they can respond with their available times.
Okay.
We're going to send them all of these attachments.
Okay.
And we've recorded this, and we can send you the link to the recording. So if you just want to refresh this between now and Tuesday, you can do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. All right.
Okay.
Anything else from anybody else? If not, I thank you very much for attending, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Stop recording. The red, down below.